Now this figure 19-5 deals with sizing the disconnecting means for one individual AC unit. Now notice NEC loop again, there's some sections referencing certain components that would be, these sections would be used to size these conductors and overcurrent devices, overload, disconnect, and so forth. But now notice conductors, we refer you to 440.32. Good reading there on how to size those conductors. Overcurrent protection, 440.22a, gives you the maximum, minimum size percentages to use. The overload setting, where you're actually setting the overloads, is 430.52a1 and a2. The disconnect is 440.14, its location. Now we're sizing the disconnect by 440.12b1. But now notice we're using the disconnecting means. If you review the illustration with me, the disconnecting means 440.14 gives you the requirements how to locate it. 440.12a now is the rules for sizing the disconnect. Now in this particular illustration, the horsepower rating for that disconnect is going to be the same for the running and the lock rotor. It would be the same if you reviewed your table 430.250 and table 430.251b as in boy for three-phase unit. Now the overcurrent device, you see its setting is 440.22a, either 225% maximum or 175% minimum. And we have an illustration, if you want to look at that, just type in your 440.22a and or type in overcurrent protection. It'll come up and you can review that particular illustration. We reviewed it just previously in this chapter 19. But now notice the full load current of this compressor, and we're just giving it is 28 amp. Now we want to know, that's everything now. That's the compressor, the condenser motor, and all. So 10 horsepower equals 28 amps, or 28 amps requires 10 horsepower, as step 1 shows in the application of table 430.250, where you use the 28 amp and then line it up in the 230-volt three-phase column and select your horsepower as you horizontally scroll across to the horsepower rated column. Now step 2, 440.12b2, we apply the 115% rule of times 28 amp, and we come up with 32.2. Selecting the appropriate breaker, if you were using it, then you'd go to table 240.6a in the step 3 you see, and 32.2 would require 35 amp rated non-automatic circuit breaker, or if you were using a disconnect switch, then naturally that 35 would require to be a 60 amp rated horsepower rated disconnect. Now by applying this procedure, we are complying with rating and interrupting capacity in accordance with 440.12b1 as well as table 430.250 and the NEC. And as previously quoted to you, our horsepower rating will disconnect running and lock rotor currents because they will be the same. It would be basically a 10 horsepower rating that we would have to have. And that's what this illustration and figure 19-5 is illustrating.